Bethesda finally set a date, and the mood here is mixed. Oblivion Remastered is a reimagining of the 2006 classic that dropped out of nowhere on other platforms last year and is now crawling onto Switch 2 as well. Good news for collectors first. The physical version ships on a real cartridge with the game on it, not an empty keycard, which these days is close to a miracle. On the tech side, expect 1080p and 30 frames docked, 900p handheld, with DLSS doing the heavy lifting on the image. Gyro, touchscreen, and even mouse controls are promised. Everything's in the box at once. Shivering Isles, Knights of the Nine, and a pile of old DLC right down to the infamous horse armor. Now for the downside. The remaster hasn't been patched on other systems since the middle of last year, and some bugs are still hanging around, while the announcement trailer oddly turned out to be mostly live-action footage, which left a lot of people puzzled.
Here you must find your own path, beyond which no waking eye may see.
I will pursue that faced Mechon.
Experience.
On the original Switch, this one looked genuinely muddy, and now it finally gets a shot at cleaning up. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 comes to Switch 2 as an upgraded edition. 4K and 60 frames per second docked, 1080p and the same 60 in handheld. For a JRPG with sprawling zones that spent years drowning in a blurry image, that's exactly the upgrade people had been begging for since the console was revealed. Beyond resolution, there's a little new stuff too. Combat challenges where you control blades directly instead of waiting on a timer, plus a rare blade and fresh gear designs. Just don't forget, this is a re-release of a 2017 game, not a new project. And Monolith Soft's track record here is shaky. The upscaling on Xenoblade Chronicles X for Switch 2 turned out so divisive that some players went back to the original. The upgrade pack for existing owners also runs about $10, which stings for what's mostly resolution and frame rate.
Or try to beat your party members to the finish line in battle races around the world.
Digimon fans have been waiting on this since last year. Time Stranger already showed up on PS5, Xbox, and PC in the autumn, moved over 1 million copies, and now it's reaching Nintendo. It's a monster-collecting JRPG with more than 450 Digimon. You play an agent of a secret organization who, after a blast wipes out half of Tokyo, wakes up 8 years in the past. The combat is the strongest part. Turn-based with a mountain of build options, and early previews singled it out for praise. The story, going by those same impressions, sags in places and takes a back seat to the fighting. On Switch 2, there are 2 modes: quality at 4K and HDR at 30 frames per second, or performance at full HD and 60. This isn't a cut-down port, but a full version with parity, and a demo is already sitting on the eShop, so you can try before you buy.
Something happens to that egg. The human world might be affected too.
Causality between these families. I'm counting on you, Agent.
This one nearly ended in disaster. When Elden Ring was first shown playable on Switch 2 at Gamescom last summer, people were clocking 15 frames per second in spots, and recording the demo was banned, which usually means there's nothing worth showing. The culprit wasn't the graphics, but the CPU. The weak ARM chip just couldn't handle simulating the open world. The release slipped, they buckled down on optimization, and by spring at GDC they brought a build that held around 30 frames and looked respectable. So Tarnished Edition lands in late August not as a bare port, but as an expanded edition. It packs in Shadow of the Erdtree, 2 new starting classes, and torrent customization. The one thing that worries me is whether the final build keeps a steady 30 across all of Limgrave, because in a game built on timing and parries, a frame drop isn't a nitpick, it's a lost run.
We'd make good mates, I reckon.
Amounting only to sacrifices.
love Souls-likes and somehow skip this one? Here's your chance to fix that on Nintendo for the first time. Lies of P is a dark spin on Pinocchio. You play Geppetto's puppet in a city drowning in madness called Krat, and it's seriously called the best in the genre since Bloodborne, From Software's own games included. The complete edition throws in the Overture expansion, which won Best DLC of the Year elsewhere, so you get the whole journey in one package. Going by the direct footage, it runs at a solid 60, and the physical version, a rarity now, comes on a full cartridge rather than a keycard. The only things that give me pause are the $70 price for a 2023 game, and the fact the original Switch once again gets nothing. Beat the first Trails in the Sky remake and got left on that cliffhanger? Not long to wait now. Second Chapter is a remake of the legendary Trails in the Sky SC, the entry fans themselves call one of the strongest payoffs in the series. Estelle travels across the whole kingdom of Liberal hunting for the vanished Joshua while untangling the plans of the shadowy Ouroboros. Falcom kept the hybrid combat from the first part. You switch on the fly between real-time and turn-based commands and position your party on a tactical map to suit your style. It's coming to both Switch and Switch 2, and the Switch 2 edition cartridge runs on both consoles. A word for newcomers: there's no point starting here without the first game. The sequel doesn't ease you in and drops you straight into the deep end. The Dark Arisen tag isn't just for show. That's what the expanded edition of the first Dragon's Dogma was called, and it became the definitive version of the game. So calling this Dragon's Dogma 2. Dark Arisen hints at a serious overhaul rather than a small add-on. Inside is the base game, plus a new snowy region called Norgan, with fresh enemies and the returning Relic Expedition cycle from the first game. For Switch 2, it's also the series' debut on a Nintendo console, and that's where the risk sits. The original stumbled noticeably even on strong PCs in towns, thanks to crowd simulation and hordes of pawns, so how a handheld digests all that is a big unknown. Capcom has been steady on Switch 2 so far, with a whole lineup of re-engine games there, but Dragon's Dogma 2 is far hungrier. From the Persona team comes maybe the best thing they've made. Metaphor. ReFantazio is a fantasy JRPG from Studio Zero about a kingdom on the verge of collapse. After the king is assassinated, you enter a tournament for the throne, while awakening magical archetypes born from people's fears. Back in 2024, it scored 94 on Metacritic and swept up Best RPG, Best Narrative, and Best Art Direction at the Game Awards, so the pedigree is spotless. On Switch 2, it's a straight port with no exclusives, which is fine. The game's already enormous. The grumbling is about something else. The physical version comes on a key card rather than a proper cartridge, and after the nice cartridges for Lies of P and Oblivion, that feels like a step back. It also stings that the original Switch is left out again. But if you've got the newer console and somehow missed Metaphor, this is one of the rare JRPGs whose writing doesn't dip from start to finish.
When any among the populace might be king.
Their speeches of tribal hopes, but I will not. Now let's see what manner of story.
This one seems cursed when it comes to dates. Wandering Sword is a pixel wuxia RPG from a small Shanghai studio that hit PC back in the autumn of 2023 and pulled an overwhelmingly positive rating, 94% across more than 30,000 reviews. Consoles were first expected in 2026, then the date moved to late May, then it was pushed all the way to January 21st, 2027, blamed on a reshuffle of the physical release schedule. Annoying, but at least they warned people early. Story-wise, it follows a young swordsman who barely survives a fatal wound and sets off to master martial arts in a huge, living world modeled on classic Chinese novels. The combat is hybrid, switching between real-time and turn-based commands on a tactical grid, and there are a full 20 endings. Another Souls-like making it to Nintendo for the first time in the series' history. Lords of the Fallen 2 is a direct sequel to the 2023 reboot, where you again drift between two intertwined worlds, the Living Axiom and the eerie afterlife realm of Umbral. CI Games is promising faster, meaner combat, a bloated bestiary, co-op with shared progression, and optional PvP. The technical ambition is real. Unreal Engine 5 with Nanite and Lumen, and a target of a stable 30 frames both docked and handheld, with the studio insisting it optimized everything alongside Epic and Nintendo. What bothers me is the rest. There's still no exact date, only a fall 2026 window, and a few sources are already quietly hinting at a possible slide into early 2027.
Oh, it was you who set the Red Cliffs ablaze.
We'll wrap the list with something that still mostly exists on paper. Wo Long 2. Wings of Ember is a sequel to the Dark Three Kingdoms action game from Team Ninja, the Neo people. It was announced recently at the Xbox Showcase, shown off in a brutal teaser. Listed with Switch 2 among its platforms and pinned to a window of early 2027. Hard details are thin on the ground. They promise defensive Chinese martial arts like deflecting attacks and the return of the morale system that carried the best fights in the first game. We've barely seen the game itself yet, just mood and concept, so it's too early to call it a hit.